Welcome back. This is Chef Hancock with another knife skills for you. Today we're going to be looking at the julienne of a carrot. Okay, so for your knife skills, we'll be asking you to do a julienne on the carrot as well as a couple other dices. And so we have a carrot here today. You can go ahead and practice on a carrot or you can practice on a potato. Potato is really good to practice on because it offers little resistance and it does not move. But if you're going to be doing this in the real world or for your exam, carrot is where you want to go. Now, first off, we don't want peels. So what do we want to do? We want to take a peeler to it. We can, but we don't need to. It's a little bit extra work, but it depends on what you want to do with the leftovers. Okay. If you were going to make a puree, carrot puree, you may or may not want to have the skin in there. And the skin turns brown a lot of times, so maybe you do want to peel it so your leftovers you can use for something else. If you're going to put them in stock, you don't need to peel them at all. Okay. So first I'm just going to go and trim up the ends. Okay. Okay, so when I look at a carrot, I look at the dimensions of the carrot. Okay, I got real thick and then I get down to about here's the medium, then it gets a little bit thinner as well. So generally I try to work in sections, that way I'm not losing excess product. Okay, so I'm going to cut right about here. And I'm going to cut right about right here. Okay, now work in sections. Okay, so I'm going to take this and I'm going to make a square out of this. So now if it's rolling around a lot, you can feel free to use a peeler once. What does that do? It helps you get a flat surface. So maybe you need to do 2 times. Okay. And now it won't roll on you quite as easy, so safety is always important. Okay, you can go ahead and stand it up and go down as well. If you're confident that you're straight down, we'll go straight down. That can work as well. Curl your fingertips and you're trying to go straight down as well from the top all the way to the bottom. This is one of the hardest ones because you don't exactly know where to cut all the time. And then I can go ahead and turn it, do the same thing here, turn it, and do the same thing here, ending right there. Okay, this is going to be in your scrap bin for your soup, for your stocks. You want to just cut these up and eat them, salad or whatnot. The choice is up to you. Now I've got this rectangle, not quite a square. That's okay for right now. Okay, even more rectangle here, so it tells me it's not straight down because it looks, but that's okay. We can figure that out a little later, or if I can go ahead here, I can take this and whittle this down to nothing all day long. So I'm not going to take too much time right now, except to try and get just little bits. Okay, sharp knife is very, very important right now. Okay, so julienne, we're going to do a 1/8 by 1/8 by 2 inches, 1.5 to 2 inches, depending who you talk to. Okay, so let's check out the length on here. Got this guy right here. We have about a 2-inch product, so that's awesome. It's going to go right here. So my julienne is going to be the middle piece right here. Okay, so 1/8 by 1/8 by 2. Okay, and then we have a fine julienne, which is that smaller one, which is 1/16 by 1/16 by 2. We don't have to worry about that too much. Right now, we're just worried about that brunoise, julienne, the 1/8. Okay, so let's measure how wide this is. Okay, we've got about 1 inch, 1 inch by 1 inch. So what that tells me is I should get 8 flanks, 8 cuts off of this, so I can have 1/8 of an inch, which is what I need for my juliennes. Okay, so I can do that a couple of different ways. I can try and cut it in half, and then cut those in half, and then those halves in halves. The problem with that is your knife may slip when you get pieces that are really, really thin and going straight down between. It may not be perfect. Okay, so if you just basically remember, kind of know where 1/8 of an inch is. So the first couple times you can feel free to have your ruler up here. Okay, you got one here, and you're gonna eyeball with one eye, one hand. Okay, start it, move your ruler away, and go all the way down. Okay. Now, if you have a metal ruler, it's even more important that you do that because, and this one's a little faded. That's okay. Note it's these ones right here. Okay, that's what you're looking for. Okay, because when you're cutting, you do not want your knife to go into the metal. So I'm going to start it, move it, okay, and finish it. Now this one's not very straight, you can see that. I tapered like a good door wedge right there, okay. We'll take care of that a little bit later. So once you get comfortable, there we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I didn't get quite 8. So what does that mean? Well, that means I don't have even pieces on here. This one is going to be, it didn't get cut. Look at that. It's wider on one edge than the other. This will frustrate you to no end. All right. If I measure it, that's a really bad ruler right there. Okay, measure it. That's good right there. That's acceptable right there. But then I go here, and that is over, and that's where some of our measuring distance differences come in hand. Now, how do we fix that? Well, carefully. So I can try and take this here and basically try and fillet it. This is where extremely sharp knife comes in handy. Little back and forth sawing, okay? Fingers, they are bent right on top. But when I get to where it's not quite safe, I'm gonna move my hand to the other side and keep cutting, okay? So I get this really paper thin piece over here. I have this one here. And look, it made a big difference on here. I can probably keep that as it is, okay? But if I don't clean those up and I don't fix the problem, what I end up with is inconsistency with my knife cuts. And what does that mean? Well, that means that if I go to a fine dining restaurant, which I know there's a lot of people that want to, I may not get a job because my knife skills are not precise, okay? Now basically, this one is 1/8 of an inch too thick, so I am filleting the carrot here. Okay, notice I'm taking very, very small cuts on here. This knife is nice and sharp. If your knife is not sharp, do not attempt this. You will go through because you're putting excess force and you will cut yourself. So don't do that. You have to have a nice sharp knife. Okay. Better. I need to cut a little bit more. And I'm angling down ever so slightly so I can help cut the carrot. Notice I'm moving my hand now so I don't cut myself. That might do her. That might do her. There we go. Just. According to the picture, it's still a little too thick. Should be a little bit less. At this point, it's hard to make it any thinner than it already is. If I need thinner, I'm gonna have to go to a new piece of carrot. Do this all over again, which is why it's important to do it right the first time. And if the last piece there didn't measure quite right, it doesn't work out, just get rid of that one. Okay? You have pieces that are thinner. These are a little bit thinner, they fit just a little bit better. Oh, I got another door wedge. A little bit better. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, I've got my planks. I'm going to cut my actual juliennes at this. So again, they should be as thick as they are wide. Okay. Got those, and this one's going to be a little bit wider, so carefully down, I'll get rid of that piece right there. Okay, so now you end up with matchsticks. This is your matchstick cut, okay? A long matchstick. These are about 1.5 inches here. Be a little bit more realistic for a match from a matchbook, okay? Now, I've got a nice square up here, and it opens up to a bigger square, or sometimes it's a rectangle on the other side. That's very common. That's what happens when your knife skills are just a little off, and the carrot, because it is round, it likes to expand out and it won't stay straight. Okay, so how we do that again? Right here, watching visual here, rocking motion, gliding on the board. My fingers are curled just ever so slightly so I can hold it and it won't get my fingertips. And the very last one there, I went very, very slow as to make sure my knife was right on the carrot. Okay, when you're confident, you can go ahead and stack them. Okay, if you can't rock because you have a Santokus are very common that you can't, it's hard to rock, so you pick up and cut, that's okay. And this will be the last one. I let the knife do the cutting. Okay, imperfections out. So there you go. You have your julienne, a nice little bundle of julienne or matchstick cuts for your carrots. Welcome back, Chef Hancock here with another knife skill for you. Okay, so let's talk about carrots again. Another video, I went ahead and made these nice little juliennes. Okay, and these are very important because, well, julienne is a knife skill on your exam and in the real world. The other thing that what I need these for is to make the brunoise. Okay, brunoise looks like brunoise, but it's pronounced brunoise because it's French. And it is a 1/8 by 1/8 by 1/8. So it's a 1/8 inch cube. Okay, if I look at my visual right here, it's going to be this guy right here, a 1/8 cube. Okay, so how do we get a 1/8 cube? Well, first we start with the whole carrot, cut off the ends, and as I said before, it's okay if you haven't watched it, I look for the contours of the carrot. Okay, so I would cut it right here, and then I might just cut it right here, right in the middle. So I have a little bit thicker end and a little bit of thinner end. That's going to help me with waste. If I have a tapered really big, or I try and keep this whole, I'm going to end up losing some product in this sense because it can only be this wide up as up here. Okay, so after that, I get pieces similar to something like this. I just need to put the tops and the bottoms, or something even smaller here. Okay, so after I do that, I can go ahead and square this up, which is why I don't need a peeler because I'm cutting all the skin out, depending on what you're going to do with these scraps later. If you're okay with the skins on there, then you don't have to do anything about it. If you don't want the skins in, or you want to do something like a soup or something, you can get a peeler and peel them first. It's just a little extra step that depends on for your scraps. Okay, so I've squared it up, which is really good. Okay, now I'm going to cut these into planks like I did over here. Okay, so now I have carrot planks. Okay. Once I have these planks here, I will then take them and cut them into the proper knife cuts, which are the juliennes right here. Okay, my matchsticks. Here, I know these are a little bit shorter, that's okay. These are about 1.5 inches, 1.75 inches, oh, but 2. These are a little bit longer then, huh? Oh yeah, these are a little bit longer. So this is great, especially if you're doing your exam. This is a nice helpful key on here, pay attention. Okay, if you have to do this for exam, you have to do your julienne and your brunoise. Always do your brunoise first, always, because you need to have your juliennes to make your brunoise. So, especially in this case, I can take my little bundles here, and I know, because I have a handy dandy ruler right here, that they are 2.5 inches long. I need them to be 2 inches. So what that tells me is I can get a couple knife cuts out of these, out of each one, to make my brunoise and still have my juliennes left over. So I'm not creating double work. Okay. So I line them all up on here. I'll take, well, we can do a smaller amount, that's okay. Right. If you lay them flat, it works best. That way nothing moves too easy on you. Start that way. Once you're comfortable, you can stack more and more on there. That's not a problem. Try and line them up as much as possible. Go ahead and just take a smallest little sliver, try and make them all the same size. All flush right here. Okay, so now this is 1/8 of an inch. Okay, so there we go. Brunoise. Okay, I done 2, maybe 3 cuts on that. I'm going to take this and measure it again. because I am just over. I need one more knife cut. Okay. One more. So now what does that say to me? Okay, I'm gonna measure this again. They're about 2 inches. Perfect. So now for my exam, I have my Julienne, which is a good size now, and I've already got a start of some Brunoise over here. Okay, and these Brunoise, they're tiny. Okay, this is when chef asks you to Brunoise a case of bell peppers. You ask him why he hates you. You're gonna be there a while to cut all these little, should be square pieces of food product. Now, are they all square? Are they all square? No, they're not quite all square. Why? Because my Juliennes weren't quite exactly. Okay, this is where exact knife measurements and cuts, they will follow you through from start to finish. And if you have an imperfection on there, that's where it's going to end up showing, is that end product as well. Okay. So I've got some more right here. Now what I can do is use one of these as a guide. Okay, so I can go ahead and put these down, try and flatten them out. Okay, I'm going to add my guide right there. Okay, I'm going to get those all flush. Now what this is here, I'm going to cut to here, probably 3 cuts on there. Okay, 1, 2, 3. So now I have more Brunoise, and now my matchsticks are all the same size right here, because I have my guide. And when you're going to use a guide, use the guide for every single one. That way you're measuring from the one piece of carrot on there, bell pepper. And then I have a start to some Brunoise over there, depending on how much you need. If you need more, okay, I'm going to take this and I'm just going to cut these all up. Brunoise is not, the concept is not hard. The hard part is getting it consistent. Okay? Getting it consistent where each one of these is going to be the same. That's a good square right there. Whereas this one and most of these are not square. Now it's not because I cut them wrong this last time. It's because when I did the Julienne, they weren't perfect. Okay? Now, real world, this will get you by 98% of the places. You want to go high end, you want to go perfect, then you're going to need to work on these every single day to get that a perfect square, because they will not be happy with that. And that is your Julienne and Brunoise in your carrot. All right, welcome back. Chef Hancock here. We're going to talk about the bâtonnet and small dice shortly to follow that in a carrot. Okay. If you watch the one with the potato, it's the same thing, just now is with a carrot, which is a little bit trickier to cut because it is cylindrical, which means it likes to pop out and move after you cut it sometimes, especially when you get around the core. Doesn't like to stay together. Okay, so first off, what we're going to do is I'm going to take the lop off the top and the bottom, and then I'm going to size it up. So this one I'm going to cut right in half because it is relative size over here, and this is relative size on this side, less waste. I'm going to end up with a piece something like this. Okay, then I'm going to take this and I am going to square it up. Okay. And that's how you get rid of the peels without peeling it. Okay, so I end up with something like this. This obviously is not a square there. It's a better square on this one, but I did not cut it perfectly. It's not the end of the world, but it does make your life a little bit harder if it's not that nice square to begin with. Okay, notice carrot is already trying to bend and curve on me because it is the core right there. Okay, I'm going to leave that there. And I have one right here and one right here. So for the bâtonnet, it's going to be a 1/4 inch dice, 1/4 inch plank. So 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch by 2 inches. Okay, so I can take these and I will cut these down into planks. So 1/4 inch is about right there. Okay, 2. Okay, now this one I'm only going to get one more, but it is going to have a little excess because it is not perfect. That can go in the trash pile. And what do I have? Well, I have 2 that are good little size, and this one is a little bit thicker. So how do I fix that? Carefully. Remember, it's bending on me. Look, it's curving. Okay, so maybe sometimes work it so the curve works out, and then try and go down. Now that's when a sharp knife comes in handy, so you can do this nice little carrot ribbon, and I get a much better knife cut off of it. The other option to do is to basically try and fillet it, or the holding it down and using a sharp knife with lots of control, little motions back and forth. I'm going to cut some of this off, kind of like when you're sheeting vegetables for pasta or zoodles or something. Okay, but I want to start it a little back and forth. Notice there is space between my fingers and the blade in case it moves, in case it jumps, and then when I get middle or so, I'm going to switch to the other side so it is a little bit safer. Okay, and basically I'm planing it. Any of your carpenters out there will know I'm just trying to make it even on all sides, nice and flat. A little bit better, a little bit different, but a lot better than what I started with. Okay, so now these obviously are longer than 2 inches. I'm going to guess they're about 4 inches. Okay, there's 3. Let me get my meat ruler out here. I've got right here, and it is almost 5 inches. So I'm definitely going to get 2 plus some out of there. Okay, so what I can do is I can, look at that, one to curve in, right? I'm going to cut these in half. And I know it's a little over 2, but that's okay. So now I have my planks. Okay, so my planks, now I'm going to go 1/4 inch off of these. Using the one as a guide. Okay, let's check these out on here. 1/4 inch. There we go. They might be just a touch. Nah. It's a little skinny right here. I want to be that square right there, and I don't have that as a square. That's good. That's almost good. A little bit skinny. So that happened when I cut these. And I just need to make sure I go out a little bit more. I cut these here. I'm going to get 2 cuts per. Okay, a little bit better. Okay, when you get confident, you can go ahead and stack them and cut more than one at a time. Just make sure that you're holding it securely so it doesn't move, and you are letting the knife cut and not trying to force it down. If you start trying to force it down, it will start slipping and moving, and that's when you get cuts on your hands. Okay, so here we go. We have about a julienne here, or bâtonnet, excuse me, a bâtonnet. Okay, and that's pretty good, pretty good. It's a little skinny on the one side. It's a little bit shorter, but I'll take that over a little bit bigger. But it's a little bit longer on there as well, and we can trim that up. We can line them up, and I will trim them there. Take that from scrap. And there we go. We have about a 2. There we go. Perfect. Okay, and that is your baton for a carrot. Okay, welcome back. Chef Hancock here, and we are going to talk about doing a small dice on a carrot. Okay, so previously we took this carrot right here, or a similar carrot to this one, not this exact one. Okay, lopped out the ends, cut it to size for diameter. Okay, so it's light for less waste. Okay, took that down, and then I'm going to cut around the skin, the edges, and I end up with a square, hopefully a square block that you can work with. Okay, sometimes it can be a little bit more rectangle. That's okay, we can work with that as well. Okay, so after that I'm going to cut it, and in this case I'm wanting to do bâtonnet, so it's going to be a 1/4 inch, 0.25 inch planks, as I call them. Okay, as I cut them, they're going to come out like this. They end up like a plank. Okay, looks like a 1x8, right? Okay, so after I have these, I'm going to take this and I'm going to cut it there until I have my oversized matchsticks. Okay. Now, you want them 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch by 2 inches. These are 2 inches already. This one here is a little bit longer. So it is almost 2.5 inches, and that's okay. We can trim that extra 1/2 inch off, and we can have the julienne. It actually comes in a little bit handy when we want to do the small dice, because to get a small dice, you need to have the bâtonnet. Okay. So I'm going to show you a little bit here. Let me cut these planks about 1/4 inch. Okay, a little excess that goes in the scrap pile. Okay, again, when you're confident, we can stack. It makes things go by a lot faster, but I'd rather you go a little bit slower and keep all of your digits than go faster and lose one, or just cut yourself. Okay. I usually don't go more than about 3, sometimes 4 at the most when I stack. It gets a little bit too tall and they start moving, getting away from me. Okay. So now I have my basic bâtonnets on here. Okay. So I'm going to just move these to the side because I have these guys right here. So once I have my bâtonnet, I can make my small dice. I can't make my small dice without my bâtonnets. They coincide, because what you want to do is you're going to cut your bâtonnet up, and then you're gonna have small dice. So a small dice is a 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch. So it's 1/4 inch cubed. And these are 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch by 2 inches. So if I keep cutting them, so a 2 inch, I should get 8 small dices out of here. Okay. I'm not going to, because I still want some batons, but that's how you would end up doing it. Now, if you're really cool, really good, really confident in this, you could strip the whole carrot down, and so you have a lot here, and then you could just work your way down and keep cutting the whole carrot. That is a skill left to those who are very confident and very good at what they end up doing. Okay, so I could try and cut all this at once, but if you're not comfortable with it, that's okay. You can start with a little bit smaller here, and what I'm going to do is I'm gonna square them up here. And it's okay, the bottom is not, because we're going to square that up at that last cut. Okay, so now I'm going to go about 1/4 inch. Okay, it's easy to do with your tip, and if they stick to it, that's okay. In this case, it's okay, because as I'm going on the carrot here, that's going to be acting as my guide. Okay, because if I took it off, then what do I have left to guide myself with except for eyeballing it? And the more you do it, the better you will get. But why not use a guide if you can? Okay, so now I'm getting to the very last one here. I am going to trim rid of those and kind of double check these. If they're not big enough, then I'm just going to get rid of them. I'm just going to get rid of them altogether because they didn't look very good. Okay, but here is my small dice. Okay, now are these perfect? No, I'm sorry, they are not perfect. That one looks pretty darn good. It looks like an actual cube, a square. A lot of times you'll end up with knife cuts that are like this guy here. Okay, it looks good on one or two sides, but then when you move it to the other one, this one is too skinny on the one side. Okay, unfortunately, that's how most of your knife cuts will end up being. That's how a lot of my knife cuts end up being. Why? Because I don't have to cut them precisely every single day. But when you cut them precisely every single day, your skills are honed in, and you're going to be doing it while you're not even looking, and you're talking to the chef or somebody else, your significant other in the kitchen. Okay, so practice makes perfect. Okay, so then I can take the rest here, and once you get the hang of it, you can go a little faster. Okay, rid of those. And there we have the relationship between the small dice and the bâtonnet. And if you notice over here, I have the Brunoise and the Julienne. They both go hand in hand. Okay? All right. Thank you very much. All right, welcome back. It's Chef Hancock again, and we're going to be talking about the medium dice in a carrot. All right, so getting a medium or even a large dice and carrot can be hard to do. Getting a large dice is, I'm not going to say impossible because you can do it. There are some really big jumbo carrots out there, but it's hard to do. Medium dice is mainly what you're probably going to be doing at the very most. So what I end up doing here is I've got carrot. I'm going to lop off the ends, and then I'm going to look for the diameter similarities on here, which I'd cut probably right about here, and that's my thicker end. Now this guy over here, after I cut the ends off, and I end up getting some sort of cube, and we do want a cube this time. We don't want to have a rectangle as much because we're trying to cut a cube directly from it. And there's not as much time to trim around it as it does in your bâtonnet and your julienne. Okay. But the skinny end on the carrot may not prove to be thick enough to do a medium dice. So just keep that in mind, that you do want to find the thicker cuts, or I'm sorry, the thicker pieces of carrots when you want to do the thicker cuts, knife cuts. This one should be good. Okay, I'm going to take my guide here and I'm going to measure it, all right? And I am just shy of 1 inch, okay? I'm going to measure all sides because each side might be different, okay? So what does it tell me? Well, I could cut this in half and cut this in half, and I would have something that's right around a 1/2 inch, but it won't be exact. And I don't want you to settle with okay. I want you to strive for the best and perfect. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut it and we're just going to throw some away. Okay. So how much is a 1/2 inch? Okay. Well, okay. So let's wind that back. How much is a full inch? Well, if you think of your thumb, the width of your thumb is about a full inch. And you can see that right here. Mine is, I got big hands, right? All the way from number 4 to number 5. Okay. So I want half of that. Well, sometimes that is, take a look at your pinky. Okay. That might be more closer to 1/2 and 1/2. Look at your fingers. Is there an imperfection on something that you can measure? Don't do, well, oh, I've got a chip right here in my fingernail. And no, don't do that, because that is not acceptable. That's why you have to wear gloves. Now, I can't see my fingertips, but I can still measure, okay? So I've got this here and here. So I know I need to cut about 2/3 one of the ways, and then I should get it right about a 1/2 inch. Okay, that's where you want to go and become one with your body and know that about measurements in your hands, because that's what you're going to be using with this whole time. Okay, try and find which end I want to cut off. And this is not straight. I'm going to try and straighten this up. Oh, better. Okay, so I am going to get this right there. So this guy can go into the trash bin. Now, when we're doing knife cuts and we have an abundance of different knife cuts, what I can do is always go for the biggest. Okay, so always go for your large dice, your medium dice first, because I can't use this piece with this guy. But this right here, if I measure it, that's a 1/2 inch. It's a 1/4 inch by 3/4 inch. All right. So this I could make into batons, which then I can make into small dice. But if you've already fulfilled the amount that you need there, when you get to your bigger cuts, it's going to be wasted then. So just think about that next time you are in the kitchen and you're doing that. Okay. So I've got, it's not a square anymore, and that's okay. All right. It's about 1/2 inch, so that's perfect. So here is 3/4, so I'm going to need to cut off about a third, quarter, a third of it. And I'm going to go right there. Okay, add that to the scrap pile. All right, that looks pretty darn good right there. I'm just a touch over in both sides. So what I'm going to end up doing is trying to cut a little out of 2 sides. I'm not quite so square anymore. That one, okay. That one's, I still need to cut this one a little bit. Okay. I got a little trapezoid going, so I'm going to cut it there, down. Better, a little bit more square. Perfect, okay. And this is 2.5 inches, which is really good because each knife cut is going to be a 1/2 inch cube. So I can get 1, 2, 3, 4. I should get 5 cuts out of this one stick. Okay. So 1/2 inch is about right there. 1, 2, 3. I'm not gonna do it. Well, 4, 5. I got 5, but are they perfect? No, they're not. I can tell right off that this one's not square, and this one's not quite square. So I really got 3 that were. What I should have done is not try to get 5, but clean up that 1. So these weren't not usable. Okay. So here, my visual, they're a little bit big, but they're uniformish. They're about the same size, and that's really what's important, that you get them all nice and similar on there so they don't stick out on there. Okay, but that is a medium dice from your carrot. Now, that was 3, maybe 4 pieces from a half of a carrot. So remember that when you need to do a lot of half-inch dices for your carrots, you need to get big pieces and then start on the big ends. Leave the skinnier ends, the smaller diameters, for your bâtonnet and your brunoise or other knife cuts that you're going to use in different dishes. Okay, thank you. Welcome back, Chef Hancock here, and we got another knife skill for you today. Right now, we are going to be working with the onion, and we are going to be doing a bâtonnet. Okay, so if you remember what a bâtonnet, the measurement, it is a 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch by 2 inches. Okay, now, if you know anything about an onion, you know you're asking me, okay, chef, how can I get a 2 inches, 2 inches long? Well, it's about 2 inches there, but how can I get a 1/4 inch thick on an onion? We understand this. So in an onion, it is pretty much, it is as thick as the onion skin, but it's still a 1/4 inch wide by 2 inches long. So you don't have to quite worry about that last dimension on there. So there's 2 different ways you can do this. So first, what we're going to do is we want to clean the top and the bottom, and we want to cut off the roots. We don't need the roots right now. Okay. So I'm going to cut this top off, make it nice and clean and flat, and I'm going to cut the bottom here, and I'm going to cut through the roots. Okay. Because the root's going to hang on to it, and I don't want it to hang on there. Okay. Now I'm going to cut this in half, and I'm going to peel it. It makes peeling a lot easier because I have it all cut and exposed. Okay. Try and go a layer or 2 in. Sometimes there's the layer here that is thinner on one side and thicker on the other side, and it helps peeling come off really, really easy. Okay, so the most common way to do this is to, and it's easiest, is like your fajita cut veg for the onion, okay? Is to go ahead and cut all the way up and around a 1/4 inch. Now this is going to be the much faster way, the more economical, the way it's done most everywhere else. This is the way if you want a knife cut that is going to be about a bâtonnet, but it's not going to be precise, so don't measure it. But let me show you what it's like. Okay, so I'm going to start here. As I work my way up, I'm going to angle it in and then go up to the middle, and then I'm going to take this end and throw back over and then do it again. So I'm not trying to cut on this side when I'm a right-handed. Now you left-handeders, I like that. You're going to do the same thing, right? Okay, so I'm going to go down here, and I'm going to cut about a 1/4 inch. Okay, I'm 90 degrees. I'm going to move that away. There we go. I'm going to do it again. Okay, this is where that nice sharp knife can start going through like butter. You don't have to put much force to it, and you will cry less because you're not smashing the onion juices, making it burst and go everywhere. And when you have a sharp knife, it just cleanly cuts through it. And if it's a duller knife, it's going to smash and break and then juice out more, which means you're going to end up crying some more. So, tip to not cry as much, use a sharp knife. So what do we have here? So we have, this is your generic brunoise, right? So this is pretty good. This is a little bit thick, okay? And as I go down the layers, it's gonna get a little bit thinner as we go through. And if you weren't quite as consistent, this one is looking closer. And I know this because, well, I can take this over and it's right about there, right? Now, it's longer than 2 inches, so I could take these and cut them, but for an onion, more than likely I'm not going to. But that is on there. It's hard to measure because this is a curved product and it wants to maintain its curves. Okay, So what you just want to end up doing is kind of going through, moving your knife so don't cut yourself, and you just kind of use your fingers and break them up. Okay. You might have to something like this where it's at the right or wrong angle. You might have to go through, get your knife, and cut those in half, or cut wherever you can get the actual julienne, the bassinet, excuse me, not the julienne. Okay, that is your economical way, your fast way. I could do that. I could do this whole onion in about 30 seconds if I wanted to, from peeling it, cutting it, and then brunoising it. Not a lot of time. Okay, let me show you a different way with better size results. Okay, so I still have my half onion here. Okay, nothing else has changed. You still cut it and clean it the same way. But now what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to cut this in half. So it's going to be a quarter of an onion, and I'm going to separate the layers. Okay. So I'm going to take I'm going to leave them in layers of 2. Okay, layers of 2, and that's kind of important. Okay, 2, and then once I get to here, these you kind of set aside. Okay. Now this way it works a lot better, more precise, but it takes about 3 to 4 times as long to cut. Okay, so I have my layers of 2. I'm going to turn them upside down, and now I'm going to try and press them slightly so they lay as flat as possible, right? Because the flatter they are, the more precise I can be. Okay, flat, and then make my first cut. Okay, so now I have a much more consistent product that I can control, and if I put this up here, well, it's pretty much right on. I'm a little thin on the one end. Okay, let me show you again. Here, I'm pushing down at the same time. I get to the very end. I'm really scrunching my fingers and getting right on the tips of my fingers, pushing down so I can get as far as away from the blade. At the same time, not putting fingernail impressions into the food. That's not very sanitary. Okay, I like to use this method, especially if I'm doing a smoked salmon board and I want to do a brunoise of onion to go with for garnish or egg salad or something. I can get a much more consistent product out of this than I can this way. Okay, but this I can get in about 30 seconds. This is going to take me a minute or 2. Which one do you need? Depends on what your need for the product is, or the demands of your chef is. Either way. And then what do? Yes, we still have the middle pieces. These are best used for something else, but if you need to, you can go ahead and cut them down as well. All right, thank you very much. All right, Chef Hancock here with another knife skill just for you. Okay, I'm gonna be brunoising an onion. So remember, brunoise is at 1/8 by 1/8 by 1/8. So that tiny little square, and out of our oddly shaped onion. So what do we do? First, I'm going to cut the top off. Okay, and then the bottom. Whenever you want to dice an onion, you can go ahead and take this off, but you want to keep the root attached to the base to the onion, and I'll show you why that's important. But if you're like me, you don't want all this dirt or the root bits getting on the board. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut just enough where I can cut those roots off, but the core is still right in there. Okay, and then I'm going to cut it in half right through the core, and I'm going to peel it. Okay. And because you have the core still attached here, sometimes it does hang on to it, so it may take an extra minute or so to peel it, and that's okay. If you need to, you can have a paring knife or a regular knife to help get underneath and act as a guide to help open them, but most of the time you don't need to have that happen. Okay, there's no skin right there. I'm going to take that next layer off because it is damaged on that one side. Those off there. Okay, left a nice onion. Okay, so the first way to do this, and this is the most economical and fast way to do it, is to cut it as it is like this. And let me show you how it's done. So what I want to end up doing is first I'm going to take a series of cuts horizontally all the way up. And since this is a brunoise, it's 1/8. I'm going to want to do 1/8 cuts all the way up. Then I'm going to want to go here and do 1/8 all the way across here. And last but not least, I'm going to do 1/8 here, and I should have a dice after that. Okay, so let me show you what I'm doing. Now, for the horizontal cuts in there, again, sharp knife is going to be your best friend, because a dull knife is going to take your onion and smush it. And then if you do that, a whole bunch of onion juice pops up. And if you don't have glasses like me or contacts, the juice could find your way onto your eyeballs. Maybe it's on the hands and you go close and it gets you. That's where you start ending up crying. Okay, with no crying in the kitchen. Okay, so I'm going to take this and do a 1/8 cut. Try and keep this level as possible. And a sharp knife will go through a lot easier. Now, if you're not quite confident, I'll show you how it's a little bit easier with the sharp knife. Is you can try to saw it into there, or as you're holding it, basically you kind of twist your knife as it goes all the way back. Now, that's about where you want to stop. Okay, you don't want to go any further, because you're going to go through the core and then it won't hold it together, and then it'll be a lot messier. Okay, so I'm going to pull it back out. Okay, so if you got a nice sharp knife, you can end up starting here. I like to have mine just slightly angled for me, because as I pull through, I want to go like this and go all the way through. Okay, now if your knife's not sharp, it will not do that. You'll have to do this the method that I did the first way. Get your knife in there and either sawing your way through or doing the back and forth to the stop right there. Okay, my knife's pretty darn sharp, so it is going to cut through there. So I did my horizontal, now I need to do a vertical. So as I do this, I don't want to go past the edges here, because obviously it will start falling apart. I don't want that to fall apart. So as I start the edges, I'm going to start lower, so not quite as far back, and when I get out, I'm going to start going back further towards that center, but again, not taking the center off. Okay, and again, this is a brunoise, so I do want to go small. So I'm using my finger as a guide, bending it just slightly. Okay, my other fingers, make sure my thumb is behind my finger so I don't cut the tip of my thumb. I've done that before, it's not fun. Okay, going down in a way, and if you've got a sharp tip, that'll work. If you don't, then it's going to be a struggle. You might have to saw it a little bit. The more you move it, the more the innards, the pieces are going to start breaking away from the body, and it's going to be becoming a mess. See, I have some of these on the board. Well, if it's a lot more duller knife, you're going to see a lot more on there. So if you see those, just kind of push them to the side. Something like that is going to be a little bigger. I can cut those there. Okay, so I'm going to finish this up here. Okay, now I've done the horizontal and the vertical. Now I need to turn this here, and I can finish out my vertical here. Now these ones right here, they may or may not be the size you want. That looks like more almost back today, a larger dice. Okay, so I'm going to kind of keep those a little bit separate right now. Okay, now here, I'm going to go and let my knife do the cutting. Separate this here. Okay, clean the knife, and as you can see, I end up with a lot smaller of a dice on the onion. Now, as you can see here, I've got a larger piece here and a smaller piece here. There's a lot of inconsistency, but the problem with that is it's so efficient to cut an onion this way. I can brunoise this onion in a relatively short amount of time. It just won't be consistent. Now, if you find some other pieces, especially around the edges, they're a little bit long, you can kind of segregate them over here and cut them up a little bit smaller in there. You're going to end up getting that because we couldn't go quite all the way on the back. So when you get down to the bottom, the end of the piece here, you have two options. You can leave this and you can use that for stock. You don't have to worry about it, or you can separate a little bit more from the pack, from the rest of it, do a couple more cuts, and then what you end up having to do is clean your knife and laying it flat, and then you'll have to come back and cut it again later. Okay, that way you can get that nice dice onto that. I'm just going to leave that and call it up. Usually I'll give it one or two more cuts as well. So that is a brunoise from the economical, fast way to do it. The problem with that is it is not very precise. It's only as precise as all three of those cuts are going to be when you're cutting it. And I can almost guarantee you they're not going to be quite that accurate. Why? Because I've been there and done that. So let me show you a different way. So we have this. I got the core. I'm going to cut the core out. Okay? Cut the core out. I'm going to take away that extra layer. I didn't do it on here. It's a little tougher, so it's almost skin. Okay, so now I'm going to cut this in half. I have a quarter, and I'm going to take these in layers of 2. Okay? If it came apart, that's okay. Just take one here and put it together. Okay? Got the core and leave there. That's okay. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2, and perfect. Okay, so now I want to turn them all upside down. And if you watch the bâtonnet, the same way I did the bâtonnets. Okay, and it's a lot more precise. Why? Because I am trying to flatten them out, and I'm only doing 2 layers at a time, not 8 layers at a time. Okay, so now I want a brunoise, so I'm going to go 1/8 of an inch. Okay. A lot more consistent. Okay, so a lot of times I will do the quarter, the 2-layer quarter, and then I will line them back up, and then I will cut them again for my brunoise. You can go ahead and take another 2 layers and put them in here. Whatever you're comfortable with is what you should do. But just know the bigger the stack, the more errors that there is available for you to make. Okay, I'm trying to get all curved the same way because it makes it cutting it that much easier. Sometimes it cooperates and sometimes it doesn't cooperate. Okay, so now I'm gonna line that up. I'm gonna go. This, I like to use this if I'm doing a nice garnish for my smoked salmon, or Easter. I like to do a big Easter egg in an oval and do smoked salmon, or I do smoked salmon mousse with it, and then pipe the mousse all around it, do some nice color design, and then fill in the areas with different products. And I like to use the red onion for that as well. It gives a really good color, and it goes really well with the salmon. So and that, when I do that, I just use the outside, probably 4 layers. The inside, it loses that red, so I don't want to use it for that. I save that for a different task, but I get all the nice deep dark red right from here. Okay, so now if you notice, this right here is already a lot smaller, a lot more consistent than that one over there. Now that one, because, well, I just didn't have the better knife cuts for it. Okay, but notice, for the amount of time it took me to cut 2 layers of a quarter of an onion, I cut a whole half onion over there. Could have cut a whole onion. So this method is a lot more precise, but it is also a lot more time consuming. And you don't want to stack too many layers on top of each other, because then it won't lay flat. So, is it worth to have more precise or faster? The answer is depends on what the need is for. Okay? All right, thank you very much. All right, welcome back. Chef Hancock here with another knife skill. We're going to be doing the bâtonnet or baton knife skill cut. Going to be a 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch by 2 inches long. If you have your meat ruler, these come in really good handy when you're practicing. Okay, you'll be looking for about 2 inches here, and it's a 1/4 inch. Okay, and these ones actually have the baton is your thicker rectangle right here. Really cool. If you get it just perfect, it should be able to fall right through. Doesn't always happen. Savory students, you should all have this in your knife kit. If not, and the bacon pastry, you can get that online or from your local restaurant depot. Should have it. I got this one on Amazon. It's a 3D knife kit visual. This one, kind of like the ruler over there. It's got a small ruler, but it has visuals. You can put it on there. And if you actually want to see it 3D, and has a 3D visualization. So it's really cool. Okay, so on here we have this potato here, and if I measure this potato here, we've got about 6 inches. So we're gonna get one good, or she get about 2 to 3, probably 2 batons on there. So what I'm gonna do is first I'm gonna square it up. So you might say, oh, let's peel the potato here. Now you could do this. You're gonna add an extra step, but we could peel this up so we can throw away the peels. And then when we go and have all the scraps, we can go ahead and cook them, and we have a mashed potato that doesn't have any potato skins. Or as we go through and we trim this up, I will show you that you're gonna have leftovers, and you can just cook those as mashed potatoes, and then you won't be wasteful. But so I'm gonna make a cup. Now what I'm looking for is I'm trying, I have it narrows down here, so I need to cut around there. It can only be as wide as your narrowest part. Trying to make okay, so as you can see, a lot of waste on here. So if I don't use this in something, it's gonna be, your food cost is gonna go way up. Okay, so I notice I have a little peel here and here. So the best thing for me to do is just to cut that right there and put that in the waste. So I have this guy here, okay? So it's not quite square, but it's not too bad square here. And then here it's a little trapezoidish on here. Not too shabby, okay? Just remember, these knife skills they're not like training wheels. Once you learn how to do them, you don't need to come back and do them. You know, knife skills, you want them perfect, you have to do them almost every day. You have to keep going until it is natural reaction, as opposed to having to stop and kind of think and concentrate, okay? For perfect ones. Now, for just in ballpark, then you'll be fine once you understand them. But for precise ones, you need to keep working on them, okay? So I have this here. I'm gonna go ahead and throw this on the scale, on the ruler. Okay, we have 4 inches. Okay, so I should be able to cut this right in half. Put that aside. And we have about 2 inches. Perfect. Fits almost right in there. Okay, now we need to keep shaping up. But what I'm going to end up doing is I need to cut this down into planks, as I like to call them. So I'm going to cut them into, since this is a 1/4 inch cut, I'm going to do a 1/4 inch on each one of these. So how wide is this? This is about an inch, and that's 1 1/4 inches. So maybe I'll go this way and get 5 slices. Okay. 1/4 inch. Yeah. And I think I'm just a little bit thicker on there, right? Come to this one, let's check it out, let's measure it. I am, yep, go about right in half. Okay, and notice my fingers over here holding, they are slightly curved so I don't cut myself, and I'm letting the blade cut right through it. Potatoes are great vegetables to practice with, as they offer little resistance and they're not too expensive as well. Okay, so I have these here, so I have my planks, okay? And as I go through, they're not horrible. I wish I had a planer, like for wood I could, plane them, they'd get all nice and smooth. But alas, I do not have one of those for the culinary world. Okay, so I'm gonna do the same thing for this guy over here, okay? Notice I'm a little bit smaller over here. That looks pretty good right there. Maybe a little thick right up there. I'm gonna go, I can measure this again, okay? I've got, it's a little under 1 inch, okay? So I'm gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm gonna get 4 slices out of this one. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, if I take this again, are they going to be perfect? They probably will not be perfect. Now, I've got one end that is perfect, and I got one end here that is a little, oh, that one's not too bad. A big one. See, that one's just a little over on that end, but in this end, it is consistently over, so I need to trim that one up. Trim some of that up. Now, what you might end up having is something along lines like this, where it is slimmer one side and fatter along the other. That's very, very common. So when you are cutting, you need to make sure you cut as straight as possible. Okay. so that does not happen. Another common thing that happens, you see a little bit more in your julienne, we'll talk about that in another video a little bit later, is that you'll have square on one end and then it'll taper to a rectangle on the other end. Very, very common as well, especially in a carrot where it's curved and everything wants to move after you've cut it. Okay, so I'm gonna leave those there. Quarter inch. And then I got this one, not quite a whole quarter inch there, so I'm just gonna trim it and go in the trimmings. Okay. Now once you have that down, you can feel free to stack more than one. Okay. Remember, let the knife do the cutting. Okay. Not quite big enough. I think these other ones are just a little big. Yep, a little big on some of these, right? So just remember, if you cut it, stack them like that, you're gonna have more than one that is not quite the same as well. So better. See, so a rectangle there and a square. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Well, how does that happen? Well, food does not like to be manipulated sometimes. Okay. And I'm going to stack these up here, turn them to a nice flat surface, holding, pushing down so they try not to move as much, and down. Very important to have that sharp knife, that way it can slice through and not move everything. And there we go, we have your batons. I can put one on here. Okay. Now, is it perfect? No, it's not. It's a little bit thick, a little bit wide. Okay. Some of the other ones, this one is a little bit thinner here. So what does that mean? It means when I go through, I need to cut and be a little bit more precise and thinner. Now, will this work for your everyday restaurant? It would. Would it work for your high-end fine dining that everything's precise? No, it will not, because it's not perfect. Okay. And then if I have this guy here, it resembles here, but you can see how much I actually need to cut off of this thick fella right there. See? Now I can fit through. I just am just a touch over. He can fit right through there. Right. He can fit through one side. Can he fit through the other? He cannot, because he's a rectangle. He is not a square. There we go. That's much better. One side, fit through the other side. So this is what we are more ending up needing to end up be. And look at that. You can see that there. It is flush with the model. So what I really need to do is go back and trim all of these. And because I didn't trim them the first time, I'm gonna have to go through and trim them all the second time. So it's really important to get your knife cuts right the first time as much as possible, so you're not spending extra time and energy going back and fixing your problem. Okay? That is your bâtonnet. Thank you. Welcome back. Chef Hancock here with yet another knife skill just for you. Today we will be talking about the tournée. Okay, so what is the tournée? Turned. Rough translation on their turn. Okay, on here my sample, my 3D knife cuts I have. This is a picture tournée. It's a 7-sided football, flat ends. Okay, this one is about 2 inches long. They come in various different sizes and thicknesses. Okay, we have that on here. On your meat ruler, your knife cut ruler, it's gonna be this octagon that's right here, because that you can, or it's not octagon, it's a septagon. I think it's septagon, 7 sides. You can put it right through. That's going to be the diameter of your tournée. Okay. So how do we get that? Well, very old school, very French, and it is a dying trade, because you can buy it for a lot cheaper than you can make it. But it is very cool when you can say, hey, I've tournéed something. So what do we end up doing? I can take a potato and I can get I should be able to get 4 cuts out of this one big potato. So I'm gonna go ahead and start cutting in half, and then I'll cut that half in half. So I'm gonna quarter it up. Hopefully I'll quarter it evenly. Now, when you're first starting and you're not confident, you can go ahead and just have them so you end up with 2 halves here. Okay. Now you're gonna have a lot more waste, but you'll get a little bit more practice. Sometimes I feel like if you quarter it and you get it's a smaller piece to work with, it's not quite as bad. Okay, so I'm gonna take this, cut a little off here. All right, so I've got 1 cut, so 7 cuts. If you think about an egg, okay, think an egg. So you take your knife, your paring knife. Now they actually make a specific knife for this. It's a tournay knife. Some people learn it as a bird's beak, but it's hooked, it's curved. And this actually really helps you get a much better knife cut off of the, for the tournay. It's a lot less resistance. I forgot mine at home today, so I'm gonna use a paring knife, which is perfect because that's what you have. Okay, so when you're doing this, count, but at the same time, don't worry about having 7. Most of you will try to want to have 6 and 8, but you need 7. Okay, so I'm gonna start about here. I'm gonna go up and over. Okay, and I'm taking a good amount. And you want to try and do smooth motion there, and it wasn't smooth, right? It's okay, I can fix that, but it's gonna interfere. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so let's count them again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right? Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've got 6. See if I got 7 over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so what that tell me? I need to cut this big one in here in half. 7. Okay, so let's try this again. Now my peel's off, it's gonna be a lot easier. Up and over now. And then you're starting to see it get some shape. All right, let's count them. See if I did. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Perfect. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm missing one? This one didn't quite go all the way through. Perfect. Easily solved. Okay, now I have my 7 cuts, so I'm gonna keep molding those. Okay? All right, it's gonna be up and then down. And when you get really proficient, you'll be able to complete a tournay in 2 passes. One's gonna be initial rough 7 in there, and the second pass is gonna be your final cuts on the 7. Pretty cool. It's been a while for me, so that is not happening. That's okay. It's okay. Like I said, it's a dying art because it takes so much skill and time to make that most kitchens and chefs don't want to spend their line cooks time cutting tournays when they can buy it for so much cheaper. You can actually go look online, and they actually make tournay machines that will do this for you, and it's kind of like a mandolin. Put it in, and it'll cut, turn it, cut, and 7, and it's a curved motion as it cuts. Okay. So that's close. Not bad for my first one. Let me show you another one. So I have two good ones on here. One that was about six sides. This one I was unsuccessful. If you go ahead and you saw on the last one, kind of mark out your 7 cuts, and then you pick them up and turn them. It's a lot simpler, a lot easier to do with that. Okay. And just because I did with the potato does not mean you can't do it with a carrot. Cut in here, it's already round, so to me it was a little bit easier to turn when I was in your shoes doing that. Or you can also take a round potato, new potato, because it's already round. You don't have to worry about trying to get this square or quarter of a potato into a round. All right, thank you very much. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Chef Hancock here for yet another knife skill we got going for you and you alone. All right, so today we're going to be doing the wonderful herb parsley. I know it's herb. I know. Just bear with me. Okay, parsley. So we use it a lot garnishing. It's got a good distinctive flavor. It's got a nice cleansing palate abilities to it. So, but we have to use it, and we want to use it in a garnish. We don't want to have the stems. Okay, there's a couple different ways we can make this work. Okay, there is the faster economical way that has more stems, or there's the longer process but gives you a better product in the end, right? I think as we go to school, we know which way we generally will need to go to help separate us from the amateurs to the professionals, aka the long way. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of this. I don't need to do all of it, right? So I'm going to take some out here and I'm going to pull the leaves off, right, stick by stick. Okay, so what I'll end up doing here is pinching slightly and pulling towards me. And what that's going to do is pull most of it off. Now you are going to have some little pieces on here. Now you might be able to go back and get some of that off, but in general you're going to have most of it off. Some of these bigger ones you can go ahead here, but that's going to be okay. When we cut it up, it's going to be just fine. Now the stems, what do you do with the stems? Well, there's still lots of flavor in the stems of parsley, just like it is in oregano and some of your other ones. I know oregano, cilantro. It's in there, so you can use it. If you're going to blend it up real good, that'd be real good, get some good flavor out of it. Otherwise, you can save it for stock, especially if you make stock. You're going to get flavor from the stems, but you're not having to buy a new parsley in just to use for flavor. You have some from there. If you don't use anything from it, you can just go ahead and simply throw it away. Okay. All right, so what I'm going to do is, now if you're feeling really lucky, you can get the whole thing here. The problem is that centerpiece is going to have a bigger stem, so go ahead and take that off. Get into some of these smaller pieces at the bottom. Now, you'll also look for color now too, right? I got to start with this dark deep green. If I put this yellowish stuff on there, it's going to look out of place and old, so I don't want to do that. So always look for quality control in the parsley, the herb itself. Make sure it is suitable for consumption. It's not tired or slimy or moldy, okay? And that it is nice deep dark green color. This one's really tired right here. And tired, getting dry and limp. That's okay. As opposed to this one where it's not quite so limp, it's nice and still green and firm. That's okay. So I've gone ahead and picked it. Now that was just a little piece of a whole bunch over here, but that's okay. I don't need to waste your time pulling the whole bunch on here. So now what do I do with it? Well, I chop it, silly. You want chopped parsley, minced parsley. Perfect. So what I like to do is I like to try and get it in here and roll it and mash it all onto itself. So it's one little ball. Okay. I'll take my knife. Now my finger holding it, I'm going to curl it a little bit too because I don't want to cut that. I really don't. Okay. And now I'm going to kind of go in, let the knife do some work and cut. It's going to go very, very slightly towards my fingers. And my fingers are going to start pulling slightly backwards so I don't cut myself. So I made one pass through the parsley and I got it chopped really pretty good. I'm going to try and keep it the same way. I'm going to turn it, okay? That is really important if you're using something like a basil or something where it's longer one way than is the other. If you keep it, you can go ahead and do the cross section and get it diced up a lot faster. Okay, so now I'm going to go through here This is where a sharp knife does come in handy. You might think, oh, well, I can just use any knife. Well, you want a sharp knife so it cuts through the herbs and it doesn't bruise them by using blunt force and a dull edge to get them off, okay? So now that I've got it fairly chopped, it's sitting in there, I'm gonna start mincing it. So the proper knife handle for mince is to have your hand on over the tip, not quite directly over the tip, almost the tip, and then you have just your pointer, index, and your thumb holding it right up here, okay? Go back and forth. Okay, after a couple times, you're gonna need to go ahead and scrape this a little bit. Scrape off your blade, clean it, get it back together. Yes, and I know you're wondering, well, how long do we have to do this? I get it, I feel your pain. You've been doing this for a minute and a half, and you're done. Now think about having to do 6 or 8 bunches of parsley. Now mind you, we only did a little bit, not even a full bunch. So it could be a lot worse. Just remember that. I know some of you are thinking, well, I can just use a blender or Robocoo or a burr stick to do this. You could, but the blades are not going to be sharp enough, and it's going to bruise them and make a big mess. Usually you need a liquid for that to happen, and then when that happens, you puree it into the liquid. Okay, so now this is just about right. It smells kind of like grass, but as I have it and I can sprinkle it a little bit, I really don't have any defined measurable shape, okay, and it is nice and fine. There's no sticks in there. This is going to be good for garnishing any of your foods. Now, it's starting to get a little bit of wet because of the oils inside of the herbs, so I would go ahead and put this on a piece of paper towel in a container. That way it can absorb, especially if you have washed your parsley beforehand and it's still partially wet, it will clump up a lot, so you will need to try and dry them out. Some chefs will actually put this on a half sheet tray and put it in the heat lamp to help dry it up. You gotta be careful with that, because if it sits in there too long, it'll actually start destroying the parsley because it gets too hot on there. Okay, so that is parsley. Thank you very much.